What do you use to mask off areas on your 3D printed statues? Hey guys, Eric here from All Things Art. It's a question I get asked quite often when I'm doing my painting tutorial videos. Eric, what was that you were using in the video when you went to mask off one color from the other color? Well, I don't always show that in my videos because when it comes to masking, it is actually very time consuming, very tedious. It's a lot of work. It's very boring. However, in today's video, that is all we are going to focus on is masking. When it comes to masking, it is extremely important when it comes to painting not only 3D prints, but basically anything. For example, if you are painting a portrait, I go and paint the portrait a flesh tone color, and now I'm ready to move on and start painting the shirt black. Well, if you're using an airbrush, airbrush creates overspray. So you don't want to have black overspray on your portrait face. So you need to mask off the area. And for that, there's 3 different products that I like to use. The first one is going to be personally my favorite. It is Tamiya tape. It is a masking tape. However, it is different than the stuff that you will see in hardware stores where it's kind of like cheap and rips like paper. This stuff works great for masking off areas on your model because it has a little bit more of a vinyl consistency to it, so it doesn't tear as easy, and it is perfect and has no paint bleed when applying it and peeling it back off. So I'll show you some tips and tricks on how to use the masking tape. The second product we're going to take a look at is by a company called Vallejo. It is Liquid Mask. Liquid Mask goes on like a gel type consistency. You brush it on with a brush applicator or a paintbrush. You let it dry and then it peels off like rubber, basically latex. So it works very well for masking as well. The third thing we're going to take a look at is Silly Putty. Yes, Silly Putty, the stuff you used to play with as a kid, works absolutely great for masking off areas. Very easy to apply, very easy to remove. So we'll take a look at those 3 products. I'll explain some tips and tricks along the way. So let's head on over to the booth and let's get started. Okay, as mentioned, one of the questions I get asked frequently when doing my paint tutorials is what I use to mask off areas. And by that, I mean when you're painting an area and you're finished. For example, I painted the skin tones. Skin tones are, for the most part, finished. But now I want to start working on the shirt. So I want to mask off the skin. And for that, we need to use one of 3 products that I like to use. I already did it on this side. This is Tamiya tape. So let me show you that real quick. So this is usually my go-to when it comes to masking off parts. It's called Tamiya or Tamiya tape. It comes in different sizes. This is 10 millimeters. And you can kind of see the width of that right there. Comes in a nice dispenser. I definitely recommend picking up the dispenser, and then you can buy the refills. This one right here is 18 millimeters. So just to give you an example of the size differences, that would be 18. This right here is, what was this one, 10. And I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on how to apply the tape. That is 10, and then they come out with a very narrow one. This one here is 6 millimeters, which is really good for following contours and striping. So those are the 3 sizes I like to pick up. 18, I use this when I'm masking off larger areas. For the most part, I'm using this one right here. This is 10 millimeters. And then for very fine details, or if you need to like bend around curves, I use the 6 millimeters. So those are the 3 sizes I recommend. That's the Tamiya tape. That's what was done already on this side to mask off this arm. And then for today's tutorial, we'll be masking off this arm as well as some other parts. Another thing you can use is Silly Putty. This is probably the thing I get asked all the time is, what is this? It's pretty much what it is, kids Silly Putty. Stuff you used to pick up as a kid to play with. Works really well for masking off areas. So for example, if I was going to mask off the bandage around his arm right here, you would just push it into place and then follow it around the contours of the bandage. That's just one side, but just to give you a rough idea, that's how you would mask off the area. Then you can paint it and it will peel right off. One thing when it comes to masking is after you paint your area, you want to make sure you clear coat it. So right now this model has been clear coated. That's very important because when you clear coat it, it protects the paint. This way when you go to pull off the tape later, you're not pulling off the paint. So before you mask anything, make sure that you are clear coating the model. And for that, definitely go check out my videos on how to clear coat. I'll leave it in the video description. Another product that I sometimes use, I don't use this too often, but this was Liquid Mask. As it implies, the name implies, it's liquid. It goes on with a brush applicator. For that, it's good for smaller areas, say for like this area here where he's kind of cut open. That would be pretty good spot to use the liquid mask. I like to use it for like smaller areas. You're not going to want to use liquid mask for a huge area like this. Could be good for like portraits to do eyeballs or teeth. And speaking of portraits, I'll give you guys a little sneak peek as I just finished working on the majority of the portraits for this project. I still need to do the cigar that's in his mouth, but for the most part these are done. So a little sneak peek at what the portraits are going to look like on this project. So if you'd like to see the rest of the project and the final outcome, definitely stay tuned to the channel and subscribe if you want to see the full video on painting this entire project. But yeah, getting back to masking off the area, I'm going to show you first how to use the Tamiya tape because that's the most common. And we're going to mask off the area. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks. All right, so we're going to mask off the shirt area here, and there's a few ways to go about doing that when it comes to tape. As I previously showed, this is the 6mm tape. This is really common for like pinstriping. With the more narrow tape, you can kind of bend and turn it. So I'm just going to do this roughly because I'm not really paying too much attention as I have the camera in my face. But if you were to apply this and then slowly bend it around the turn like so, and again I'm just roughly eyeballing this, that would be one way to do it using the more narrow tape. For that, I don't really find it that precise, so I'm going to show you a little tip that I like to do. I like to use the thicker tape. As mentioned, the 10mm is my most common size that I use, and I would rip off a small little section like so, maybe like an inch or two, depending on the area that you need to mask off. From here to there, we pretty much have a straight line, but what I do is instead of trying to perfectly follow the contour, I lay it over both areas. So half of it, well not half, some of it is overlapping the shirt right now, and then the other half is overlapping the skin. And then what I do is I come in with a wooden skewer, or you can use a toothpick, and then I go around and I slowly start to push it in place to trace that line around the edge of the sculpt. So let me get this in place and then I'll show you what it looks like. One tip, if you are going to use a wooden skewer or a toothpick, is don't leave it super pointy. I usually just either bite off or, pick off the tip. This way it has a little bit of a blunt end to it and it's not super sharp. You don't want it super sharp because it will rip right through the tape. So let me just give it one more pass and I'll show you what that looks like. So by doing that, I covered both parts. And then from here, what I would do is take an X-Acto blade. You want to make sure you have a brand new blade. It doesn't matter if you only used it a few times. It's a very important tip is to use a brand new blade, because you're going to slowly drag it over that line around the sculpt. And you basically want the blade to do all the work. You don't want to push too hard to where you're ripping through the actual model. You just want to slowly drag it. Let's see if I can do it on camera here. You just want to slowly drag it across that line. And again, I'm just going to eyeball this for the sake of the video, and then I'll redo it better later. So I just lightly dragged it, and then I would come back with my skewer or toothpick. Again, we're masking off the skin, so you want to leave the skin. And then you can pull off the part from the shirt. And now I have a nice, precise line that's masking off the skin. And then you would repeat the same steps going around the sculpt. So I'll do it one more time. So take another piece of tape, roughly an inch or two, or whatever applies to the size of the model that you're working on. Again, I'm just roughly doing this. Just loosely put it in place. You want the skewer to do most of the work for you as you push it into place. Okay. Like so. And then you can come back with the X-Acto blade and same thing. Just cut it out. And it's important to have that sharp blade, because the blade will do all the work. This way you're not cutting through the model. I'm just lightly dragging it. So let me peel off that piece. Okay. Again, I'm just doing this very quickly. But yeah, basically that's the steps you would do. Go around the entire model that needs, the area that needs to be masked off. And then for the entire arm, I can come back with the larger pieces of tape like I did on this side and fully mask off the entire area. All right, I'm gonna continue masking off the rest of these areas. I'll do a quick time lapse. This way it's not repetitive. And then we'll come back and I'll show you how to use this liquid mask here. All right, so here's how the upper torso is now looking after we masked off the two arms. So we got that arm masked off. We have this arm masked off. So now we can spray, airbrush the shirt. This way we get nice crisp lines once the tape is removed. One last thing I want to mention about the tape, and it's very important. When it comes to masking tape, you definitely want to use the Tamiya tape. This is my go-to for masking. Very important to get good, high quality tape because this tape is very reliable. You will not have paint bleed with this type of tape. It's more of like a vinyl tape than it is if you went with something that you get at, say, Home Depot or even the dollar store, normal masking tape. This type of tape does not work well for painting. If you use this kind of tape, I actually have a roll already open I could show you. If you're familiar with this type of tape, you don't want to use this type of tape to mask off your projects. As you can see, it's kind of see-through because this tape will bleed. If you went to mask off an area, you're going to have paint bleed underneath the tape. So do not use this type of tape when you're painting your models. Spend the extra money, pick up the Tamiya tape. I'm going to leave a link to where you can buy this in the video description. I might have a coupon to where you can get it a little bit cheaper. So definitely check out the video. Somewhere on the video or the video description, I'll have a link to where you can get this at a better rate. Yeah, as mentioned, this is labeled as the refill. Get the tape as well as the dispenser. It keeps the tape from getting contaminated with any dust or particles. Keeps the tape nice and clean. So definitely make sure you get the dispenser. The other thing with masking off areas is it's not something that's extremely difficult. It's definitely beginner and intermediate friendly, but it is very time consuming. I probably spent maybe an hour or two just masking off of these two arms. The most time consuming is definitely doing around the actual line, where the sculpt is, where you want it to be nice and perfect. And again, going back to that Tamiya tape, we're going to paint the shirt. And when I finish painting this, I'm going to show you how crisp of a line that you get with the Tamiya tape without having any paint bleed. So that's why I always recommend this type of tape. But yeah, it's very time consuming. You're not going to put down one piece of tape and nail it in the first shot. But that's what's great about the tape. You can, rip off another piece of tape and go back and do it over again. If you kind of mess up and don't get a perfect line, around the sculpt, you can come back with a little bit more tape, put it down, and then cut it again. So it's definitely a layered process going around and getting it to the way you want it. This way it's nice and perfect. So it is time consuming, but the end result is worth it because like I mentioned, once we get this painted, and I will paint it on this video, I'll show you the end result. When you peel off the tape and everything has a nice crisp line, it's definitely well worth the time that it takes to go around and mask it. The other thing with masking, if you want to save on some tape and not go through so much, for example, if I was to just mask off this area right here and I wasn't masking off this bottom part here, I could have stopped taping it like around his bicep, tricep area up here. I could have stopped the tape right around there and then came with some saran wrap or some, like a plastic type bag and just wrapped it around and then taped it here and then taped it towards the bottom. This way you're not wasting so much tape. So you could use other resources, if you don't need to tape off an entire area on both ends. You can just wrap a bag or recommend saran wrap. Saran wrap is very easy to use and it clings nice and tight to the model. All right, so that should be it for the tape. And then we're gonna move on to, I'm gonna show you an example using the silly putty as well as the liquid mask. We'll get this guy painted, we'll peel off the tape, and then I'll show you the end result. All right, so taking a look at the Vallejo Liquid Mask, this actually comes in different sizes. This is the smallest size that they carry. This is a 17 milliliter bottle, but they have larger sizes. I believe the larger sizes have a brush applicator, and it kind of comes like in a jar. This one comes with a spout type tip similar to the Vallejo paints. but you can use any paintbrush, to apply it. We're going to apply it to this dish. I'll draw a smiley face design. Basically, the way it goes on is it goes on this turquoise color, and then you'll know it's ready to be painted over once it dries, because once it dries, it turns clear. That's one of the reasons why I want to use this clear dish. So let me draw a little design here, and then once it dries to a clear color, we'll go back and we will paint over it. Okay, so I have my smiley face design there. We'll let that dry for roughly an hour or two. We'll see how long it takes to turn clear. Once it turns clear, I'll airbrush over it and then let it dry, and then we'll peel it off and take a look at it. But anyway, let's get back to the actual model that we're working on, which is the 3D printed Logan, or better known as Wolverine. So next up, let's take a look at the silly putty method. And then we have the silly putty. When it comes to silly putty, the great thing about it is when you put it in place, you can paint right away, and then we can peel it off right away if you want, or you can sit there and let it dry. There's really no negative side effects to silly putty, to where the liquid latex, they do recommend that you do not leave it on more than 24 to 48 hours, to where silly putty, you can leave it on for a fairly long time. Nothing's really going to happen to it. But for this project, we're going to mask off the tears in his shirt with the silly putty. So let me get that applied and I'll show you how that looks, and then we'll get started with the painting. And for working with the silly putty, the same with the masking tape, I like to use a wooden skewer. The other great thing about silly putty is if there's too much, you could take it off. If there's too little, you could add more. And as mentioned, it doesn't necessarily dry, so you could take your time working with it. It's not permanent, so if you don't like the way it went on, you could peel it right back off. So it's a lot of fun to work with. And then what I like to do with the wooden skewer is just push it within the sculpt. And then, for example, I have a little bit of excess right here. You could just cut it right off and put it back into the container there. All right, so I'm going to get this masked off good so I can pay attention, and then I'll come back and show you how it looks. All right, it is the next day. Here's how everything is looking after the tank top was painted. As mentioned, went around, did a base coat of a light gray, came back, did some dry brushing with the white, and then finally at the end I came back and just misted over some of the shading and highlights, which worked out really nice for creating a little bit of like a dirt effect. I still need to come back and do more weathering. I want to make him look like he's sweating in certain spots, and then I also need to do the blood effect, but that will be done towards the end. So definitely stay subscribed and stay tuned for the full video of painting him before and after to see the final result. But getting back to the masking, it's the fun part of this. It's time to pull off the masking tape and see how everything turned out. The thing with masking tape is things aren't always going to go perfect. Hopefully everything worked out. There might be some areas that need light, touching up of the paint in case I missed a spot here and there. It's quite normal. One thing with masking is no matter how much experience you have, no matter, how many years you've been doing this, no matter how good you are, there's always a chance that the tape can pull off a certain area. It's very rare, but it happens to the best of us. You're going around pulling off the tape and it actually pulls up the paint a little bit. If that happens to you ever, that's usually because of your primer. When you were starting the model from the beginning and putting down the primer, probably didn't adhere properly. Might have had a little bit of a contamination or something, and it just happens when you go put down the masking tape. Sometimes it pulls up the paint. It's very rare that it happens. I don't think it's ever happened to me, but I've seen it happen to other guys. That's why I always recommend putting clear coat. You definitely want to clear coat the area before you put down masking tape. This way you're not pulling on the paint. As I pull this off, I'm pulling off against the clear coat, so the paint is protected. All right, so yeah, let's get to the fun part. I'm going to do a time lapse and we'll start peeling off the tape, and I'll start with the silly putty. And as mentioned, the silly putty is great because it's easy to apply and it's easy to take out. I'm just going to go around with my wooden skewer here and start popping off the silly putty and start popping off the tape. All right, so we got the tape pulled off. Everything is looking good. There's a few spots I gotta fix up, and I'll point that out in a second. But the good thing is none of the paint peeled off. And again, I wasn't expecting the paint to peel off, but it's always a little nerve-wracking, pulling tape off of a painted surface. That's why, like I said, make sure you clear coat it. The other reason for clear coating is I'm going to point out a few things real quick, and let me zoom in. All right, so even with putting down the tape, I have a little spot right there that got underneath the tape. Not a big deal because as of right now, the skin is clear coated and I could just wipe that off. The tank top is not clear coated yet. I'll do that afterwards, make sure everything looks good. But I got one little spot there. I got one little tiny spot on his arm that I'll have to remove. And I think that's it. Oh, and I think I accidentally forgot to mask off that area. I was going trying to pull it up, and I was noticing, the putty wasn't coming off. So I don't know if I intentionally didn't mask that off or I just forgot. It doesn't really matter. A lot of this is going to get painted with blood. These are going to be like blood wounds here. So you're not even going to really see the skin that much. As far as touch-ups, so if you look right here, I got to do a little bit of touch-ups around the wound area right there with a little bit of white. Again, this is getting covered up with blood, but in terms of like if you were working on your project and say you weren't going to put blood over the area, so yeah, you would have to touch up that little spot, no big deal. In terms of the actual tank top, if you look at the line going around between the skin and the actual tank top, it's nice and crisp. That's why I say I always recommend using the Tamiya tape. Might have a few areas that I might need to clean up, and again, this will come right off because it's clear coated. So I'm going to do that in a second. Looking at this side, I didn't get really any overspray on here, and again, the lines look nice and crisp. So very happy with the results. Everything turned out nice. And as mentioned, it's time consuming putting down the tape, but it's definitely worth it when you get nice looking results like that. So he's looking cool. Really happy with the way this is turning out. As far as moving forward on the rest of the project, before I get to showing you how to take off a little bit of the overspray, the arms still got to get painted with all the hair strands that are sculpted in. So there's going to be a few changes on here. He's also going to have a lot of blood splatter, in certain areas. So more work needs to be done. This isn't the final look. He'll have some sweat stains on the actual tank top as well. But let me show you how to get off certain areas. Usually, because it is clear coat, again, I always use wooden skewers for everything. So there's a little spot right there along the tank top that it's not that bad, but it should be skin and not gray. So I'm going to peel that off, and what I like to use is I basically use what I use for my airbrush thinner. It's just a little bit of alcohol mixed with water and some glycol, or you could just use a little bit of water or alcohol, doesn't really matter. And I'm just going to go around and clean off the mark. Here, let me show you. So as mentioned, we had that one little spot right there. For now, I'm just going in with a little bit of water. See if it comes off. It should wipe right off. And yeah, it came right off. So as you can see, it's not rubbing off the skin color because it is clear coated. That's why I always recommend clear coating to save your progress. And then we had one spot right there. Same thing, I'm just going to wet the Q-tip. Should come right off. Okay, there we go. All right, so it came off with water. Didn't even need any alcohol. All right, off camera, I'll go around and fix up that line just a little bit. I mean, it looks good. Can't really tell. On camera, everything's zoomed in, so you might notice it, you might not. Kind of want to just clean up that one little spot right there. The rest of it came out really nice. So I did a good job at masking around the other areas. I just want to hit that one spot right there. And then on this side, yeah, well, the masking turned out really nice. Got a nice crisp line between the actual skin tone and the tank top. So very happy with the way this turned out. The last thing we're going to take a look at was the painted smiley face with the liquid mask. We'll peel that off, show you how that turned out. And I'll also run a clip to show you from Vallejo's own YouTube tutorial of peeling off the liquid mask, just in case you did want to see how it reacts on an actual model. But basically peels off like latex. It's very simple. All right, from here, moving forward, now that I'm happy with the results, I would put down a clear coat. I'm going to clear coat the tank top. Again, the skin's already clear coated, but now I want to lock in my progress for the tank top. So I'm going to go around off camera, clear coat the entire area again, this whole entire part. This way the tank top is now protected moving forward. and then I'll start working on the blood stains. And again, that way if I make a mistake doing the blood stains, I can wipe it off easily, the same way I just did on the skin there. So that's why it's important to clear coat. All right, let's take a look at the smiley face, and then yeah, we'll wrap up this video. Okay, so those are the results with the 3 different products. As you can see, when it comes to masking, the Silly Putty is definitely the quickest to work with putting it on, and it's definitely the quickest to take it back off. So anytime you think you could get away with masking off an area with just using Silly Putty, that would be what I would recommend. As far as creating crisp lines, Silly Putty might not be the perfect product to do that. You might have to go back with a paintbrush and touch up certain areas. Not a big deal, but keep that in mind. Now, when it comes to creating perfect crisp lines, my recommendation would always be the Tamiya tape. It takes longer to put on, and it's more time consuming, but you're gonna get better professional results with the Tamiya tape. It's gonna create nice lines for you. As far as the liquid mask goes, again, that's not something I really use. It's just way too time consuming between the drying time of applying it and then waiting for the paint to dry fully, and before you can even peel it off. And then when you do go to peel it off, it's very tacky and sticky and can get stuck to certain crevices. So you gotta be very careful working with the liquid mask. Also, it's not really recommended for applying it to very large areas. However, with the Vallejo video, you saw they were working on a miniature, so maybe if you're a miniature scale builder, I could see that coming in handy. It might be worth picking up and to try out. It's definitely fun to play around with. However, the same things I could do with the liquid mask, I feel like I could do with the Silly Putty. If I need to mask off smaller areas like eyes and a mouth, teeth, I would go to the Silly Putty before I go reaching for the liquid mask. So those are the 3 products. Those are my recommendations. As far as Logan goes, I will have an entire video painting Logan from start to finish. So hit the subscribe button, stay tuned. That video should be coming soon. And if you have any questions about today's video and masking in general, drop a comment down below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next project. Take care.